peace and love. I come to you handmade in Romania to bring you chapter 2 of our The Emperor Wears No Clothes. I'm going to get right into it as to not waste any of you or I's precious time, and so we can delve more into this book, which I'm looking forward to doing. So let us begin. Chapter 2 is a brief summary of the uses of hemp. Our challenge to the world: try to prove us wrong. If all fossil fuels and their derivatives, as well as trees for paper and construction, were banned in order to save the planet, reverse the greenhouse effect, and stop deforestation, then there is only one known, annually renewable, natural resource that is capable of providing the overall majority of the world's paper and textiles, meeting all of the world's transportation, industrial, and home energy needs, simultaneously reducing pollution, rebuilding the soil, and cleaning the atmosphere all at the same time. And that substance is the same one that did it before and will do it again, and that is cannabis, hemp, marijuana. Let us begin. And basically this chapter is going to go over a bunch of different topics of what hemp cannabis does in terms of industrial, medicinal, textile. So let's just go ahead and number 1, ships and sailors. 90% of all ship sails since before the Phoenicians, from at least the 5th century BC until long after the invention and commercialization of steamships, mid to late 19th century, were made from hemp. You can see the picture opposite page. We'll show you that in a moment. The other 10% were usually flax or minor fibers like ramie, sisal, jute, and abaca. The word canvas is the Dutch pronunciation, twice removed from French and Latin, of the Greek word cannabis. Cannabis, of the Hellenized Mediterranean Basin Greek language, derived from the Persian and earlier northern Semitics, Kwanuba, Kanabasum, Kana, which scholars have now traced back to the dawn of the 6,000-year-old Indo-Semitic European language family base of the Sumerians and Akkadians. The early Sumerian/Babylonian word ka-na-ba, or Kanaba with a Q, is one of man's longest surviving root words. KN means cane, and B means two reeds or two sexes. In addition to canvas cells, until this century, virtually all of the rigging, anchor ropes, cargo nets, fishing nets, flags, shrouds, and oakum, the main protection for ships against saltwater, used as a sealant between loose or green beams, were made from the stalk of the marijuana plant. Even the sailors' clothing, right down to the stitching in the seamen's rope soled, and sometimes canvas shoes, was crafted from cannabis. Believe it. Additionally, the ship's charts, maps, logs, and Bibles were made from paper containing hemp fiber from the time of Columbus, which was 15th century, until the early 1900s in the Western European/American world, and by the Chinese from the 1st century AD on. Hemp paper lasted 50 to 100 times longer than most preparations of papyrus, and was 100 times easier and cheaper to make. Incredibly, it cost more for a ship's hempen sails, ropes, etc. than it did to build the wooden parts. Nor was hemp restricted to the briny deep. So that's just about ships and sails. We're moving now on to part 2, which is about the textiles and fabrics of cannabis hemp. See a little picture. Until the 1820s in America, and until the 20th century in most of the rest of the world, 20th century being the 1900s, 80% of all textiles and fabrics used for clothing, tents, bed sheets and linens, rugs, drapes, quilts, towels, diapers, etc., and even our flag, Old Glory, were principally made from fibers of cannabis. for hundreds, if not thousands of years until the 1830s. Ireland made the finest linens, and Italy made the world's finest cloth for clothing with hemp. Although these facts have been almost forgotten, our forebears were well aware that hemp is softer than cotton, warmer than cotton, more water absorbent than cotton, has 3 times the tensile strength of cotton, and is many times more durable than cotton. Homespun cloth was almost always spun from fibers grown in the family hemp patch. In fact, when the patriotic, real-life 1776 mothers of our present-day blue blood daughters of the American Revolution, the DAR of Boston and New England, organized spinning bees to clothe Washington's soldiers, the majority of the thread was spun from hemp fibers. Were it not for the historically forgotten or censored and currently disparaged marijuana plant, the Continental Army would have frozen to death at Valley Forge, Pennsylvania. The common use of hemp in the economy of the early republic was important enough to occupy the time and thought of our first U.S. Treasury Secretary, Alexander Hamilton, who wrote in a Treasury notice from the 1790s, "Flax and hemp. Manufacturers of these articles have so much affinity to each other, and they are so often blended that they may with advantage be considered in conjunction. Sailcloth should have 10% duty," and it goes ... because the quote continues. Represent Alexander Hamilton. The covered wagons went west to Kentucky, Indiana, Illinois, Oregon, and California, covered with sturdy hemp canvas tarpaulins, while ships sailed around the Horn to San Francisco on hemp sails and ropes. Homespun cloth was almost always spun by people all over the world, from fibers grown in the family hemp patch. In America, this tradition lasted from the Pilgrims, which was the 1620s, until hemp's prohibition in the 1930s, almost 100 years ago. The age and density of the hemp patch influences fiber quality. If a farmer wanted soft, linen-quality fibers, he would plant his cannabis close together. As a rule of thumb, if you plant for medical or recreational use, you plant 1 seed per 5 square yards. When planted for 1 seed, 4 to 5 feet apart. Were it not for the marijuana plant, the Continental Army would have frozen at Death Valley Forge. Is just an emphasis they wanted to make, because what else were they going to? Hemp was warmer than cotton, more water resistant, and if they're out exposed to the elements all the time, I would imagine that to be so. 120 to 180 seeds to the square yard are planted for rough cordage or coarse cloth. Finest linen or lace is grown up to 400 plants to the square yard and harvested between 80 to 100 days. By the late 1820s, the new American hand cotton gins, invented by Eli Whitney, shout out Eli, in 1793, were largely replaced by European-made industrial looms and cotton gins. Gin is short for engine. I did not know that. Because of Europe's primary equipment, machinery, technology, tool, and dye making led over America. For the first time, light cotton clothing could be produced at less cost than hand retting, which is rotting, and hand separating hemp fibers to be hand spun on spinning wheels and jennies. However, because of its strength, softness, warmth, and long-lasting qualities, hemp continued to be the second most used natural fiber until the 1930s. It says in a little note, in case you're wondering, there is no THC or high in hemp fiber. That's right, you can't smoke your shirt. In fact, attempting to smoke a hemp fabric, or any fabric for that matter, could be fatal. Okay. After the 1937 marijuana tax law, new DuPont plastic fibers, actually, I'm going to start this sentence over again. This is very important. And my husband used to work for DuPont before he knew what it was and what they did. And I just find that that's not a coincidence that the plant that he's come to know and love, enemy number 1 was a place that he worked for. So he can have more, invested interest, I think. After the 1937 marijuana tax law, the new DuPont plastic fibers, this is when plastic was created, under license, Since 1936, from the German company IG Farben, patent surrenders were part of Germany's World War I reparation payments to America, replaced natural hempen fibers. So their reparation payments were to give away patents, and Germany decided, let's give them the patent for plastic and like just make things really bad. That's how I see this. Anyway. DuPont also introduced nylon, invented in 1935, to the market after they patented it in 1938. Finally, it must be noted that approximately 50% of all chemicals used in American agriculture today are used in cotton growing. Hemp needs no chemicals and has few weed or insect enemies, except for the U.S. government and the DEA. And that's what we'll talk about as far as it goes to textiles and fabrics. That's pretty crazy. Everything was made, clothing-wise, from hemp. And it wasn't until DuPont came around and created plastic and nylon from patents from Germany that this happened and that things changed. And now we're all wearing plastic. Well, not me. I've almost completely, officially gotten rid of all my plastic clothing. Number 3, fiber and pulp paper. Until 1883, from 75 to 90% of all paper in the world was made with cannabis hemp fiber, including that for books, Bibles, maps, paper money, stocks and bonds, newspapers, etc. The Gutenberg Bible in the 15th century, Pantagruel and the herb Pantagruelian, Rabelais from the 16th century, King James Bible from the 17th century, Thomas Paine's pamphlets, The Rights of Man, Common Sense, The Age of Reason, 18th century, the works of Fitzhugh Ludlow, Mark Twain, Victor Hugo, Alexander Dumas, Lewis Carroll's Alice in Wonderland, 19th century, and just about everything else was printed on hemp paper. The first draft of the Declaration of Independence, June 28, 1776, was written on Dutch hemp paper, as was the second draft completed on July 2nd, 1776. This was the document actually agreed to on that day and announced and released on July 4th, 1776. On July 19th, 1776, Congress ordered the Declaration to be copied and engrossed on parchment, a prepared animal skin, and this was the document actually signed by the delegates on August 2nd, 1776. Hemp paper lasted 50 to 100 times longer than most preparations of papyrus, and was 100 times easier and cheaper to make. What we, the colonial Americans, and the rest of the world used to make all our paper from the discarded sails and ropes sold by ship owners as scrap for recycling into paper. The rest of our papers came from our worn-out clothes, sheets, diapers, curtains, and rags, sold to scrap dealers made primarily from hemp and sometimes flax, hence the term rag paper. Our ancestors were too thrifty to just throw anything away, and thank goodness. So, until the 1880s, any remaining scraps and clothes were mixed together and recycled into paper, which is very smart. Rag paper, containing hemp fiber, is the highest quality and longest lasting paper ever made. It can be torn when wet, but when returns to its full strength when dry. Barring extreme conditions, rag paper remains stable for centuries. It will almost never wear out. Many U.S. government papers were written by law on hemp and rag paper until the 1920s. It is generally believed by scholars that the early Chinese knowledge or art of hemp paper making, 1st century AD, 800 years before Islam discovered how, and 1200 to 1400 years before Europe, was one of the two chief reasons that Oriental knowledge and science were vastly superior to that of the West for 1400 years. Thus, the art of long-lasting hemp paper making allowed the Orientals' accumulated knowledge to be passed on, built upon, investigated, refined, challenged, and changed for generation after generation. In other words, cumulative and comprehensive scholarship, which is beautiful. The other reason that Oriental knowledge and science sustained superiority to that of the West for 1400 years was that the Roman Catholic Church forbade reading and writing for 95% of Europe's people. In addition, they burned, hunted down, or prohibited all foreign or domestic books, including their own Bible. for over 1,200 years under the penalty and often used punishment of death. Hence, many historians term this period the Dark Ages, 476 AD to 1000 AD, or even until the Renaissance. That's pretty crazy. And that's just the section we talked about for pulp, fiber and pulp paper. Now let's move on. We're going to go to number 4, 5, 6, 7. Everything else is kind of rapid fire, so I think this will be, yeah, we're almost done. We're almost done with chapter 2. Number 4, rope, twine, and cordage. Virtually every city and town, from time out of mind, in the world had an industry making hemp rope. Russia, however, was the world's largest producer and best quality manufacturer, supplying 80% of the Western world's hemp from 1740 until 1940. Thomas Paine outlined 4 essential natural resources for the new nation in Common Sense, 1776: cordage, iron, timber, and tar. Chief among these was hemp for cordage. He wrote, "Hemp flourishes even to rankness. We do not want for cordage." Then he went on to list the other essentials necessary for war with the British Navy: cannons, gunpowder, etc. From 70 to 90% of all rope, twine, and cordage was made from hemp until 1937. It was then replaced mostly by petrochemical fibers, owned principally by DuPont, under license from Germany's IG Corporation patents, and by Manila Abaca hemp, with steel cables often intertwined for strength, brought in from our new far western Pacific Philippines possession, seized from Spain as reparation for the Spanish-American War in 1898. That's that section. Number 5, art canvas. Hemp is the perfect archival medium. The paintings of Van Gogh, Gainsborough, Rembrandt, etc. were primarily painted on hemp canvas, as were practically all canvas paintings. A strong, lustrous fiber, hemp withstands heat, mildew, insects, and is not damaged by light. Oil paintings on hemp and or flax canvas have stayed in fine condition for centuries. And that's that. Number 6, paints and varnishes. For thousands of years, virtually all good paints and varnishes were made with hemp seed oil and or linseed oil. For instance, in 1935 alone, 116 million pounds of hemp seed were used in America just for paint and varnish. The hemp drying oil business went principally to DuPont Petrochemicals, which is sad. Congress and the Treasury Department were assured through secret testimony given by DuPont in 1935 to 37 directly to Herman Oliphant, chief counsel for the Treasury Department, he's a bad guy, that hemp seed oil could be replaced with synthetic petrochemical oils made principally by DuPont. Oliphant was solely responsible for drafting the Marijuana Tax Act that was submitted to Congress. Thanks, Herman Oliphant. Thanks a lot. That's the end of that section. Makes me mad. Paints and varnishes. Just that one. Number 7, lighting oil. Until about 1800, hemp seed oil was the most consumed lighting oil in America and the world. It lit the world. Let there be light with this oil. From then until the 1870s, it was the second most consumed lighting oil, exceeded only by whale oil, which is sad. Hemp seed oil lit the lamps of the legendary Aladdin. Ooh, Abraham, the prophet, and in real life, Abraham Lincoln. In real life, Abraham was real, okay, and Aladdin. It was the brightest lamp oil. Hemp seed oil for lamps was replaced by petroleum, kerosene, etc. after the 1859 Pennsylvania oil discovery and John D. Rockefeller's 1870 and on National Petroleum Stewardship. Thanks, Rockefeller. Yeah, thanks. In fact, the celebrated botanist Luther Burbank stated the seed of cannabis is prized in other countries for its oil, and its neglect here illustrates the same wasteful use of our agricultural resources. It's crazy how like America just the corporation of America, not Americans. It's crazy how the corporation of America really just like is doing as much as possible that is like the adverse of what we would want. It's literally whatever is good, they want to make that. It's kind of crazy. Number 8, biomass energy. In the early 1900s, Henry Ford and other futuristic organic engineering geniuses recognized, as their intellectual scientific heirs still do today, an important point that up to 90% of all fossil fuel used in the world today, up to 90% of all fossil fuels used in the world today, coal, oil, natural gas, etc., should long ago have been replaced with biomass, such as corn stalks, cannabis, waste paper, and like. In middle school, I knew a woman who would go to restaurants to pick up corn oil, and it ran her vehicle. In middle school. I'm 30, so that gives you any idea. Biomass can be converted, the biomass that we just read, corn stalks, cannabis, waste paper, like. Biomass can be converted to methane, methanol, or gasoline at a fraction of the current cost of oil, coal, or nuclear energy, especially when environmental costs are factored in. And its mandated use would end acid rain, end sulfur-based smog, and reverse the greenhouse effect on our planet right now. There's a little note. Government and oil and coal companies, etc., will insist that burning biomass fuel is no better than using up our fossil fuel reserves as far as pollution goes. But this is patently untrue. Why? Because unlike fossil fuel, biomass comes from living, not extinct, plants that continue to remove carbon dioxide pollution from our atmosphere as they grow through photosynthesis and store the carbon in the soil, which I just learned from watching Kiss the Ground on Netflix. Watch it. Furthermore, biomass fuels do not contain sulfur. And if you've ever watched Supernatural, you know when they smell sulfur, that means that there's demons around, like bad entities, just saying. This can be accomplished if hemp is grown for biomass and then converted through pyrolysis, which is charcoalizing, or biochemical composting into fuels to replace fossil fuel energy products. Remarkably, when considered on a planet-wide, climate-wide, soil-wide basis, cannabis is at least 4 and possibly more times richer in sustainable, renewable biomass / cellulose potential than its nearest rivals on the planet: cornstalk, sugarcane, knaf, trees, etc. One product of pyrolysis, methanol, is used today by most race cars and was used by American farmers and auto drivers routinely, with petroleum / methanol options starting in the 1920s through the 1930s and even into mid-1940s to run tens of thousands of auto, farm, and military vehicles into the end of World War II. Methanol can even be converted to a high-octane, lead-free gasoline using a catalytic process developed by Georgia Tech University in conjunction with Mobil Oil Corporation. That's the end of number 8. Number 9. Doing great listening. This is great. The chapter 2 is a little longer than I thought. Number 9. From 1842 through the 1890s, extremely strong marijuana, then known as cannabis extractums, this is about the medicine portion, and hashish extracts, tinctures, and elixirs were routinely the second and third most used medicines in America for humans. Medicine. From birth through childhood to old age, it was safe. And in veterinary medicine until the 1920s and longer. Queen Victoria used cannabis resins for her menstrual cramps and PMS. Her reign from 1837 to 1901 paralleled the enormous growth of the use of Indian cannabis medicine. As stated earlier, for at least 3,000 years prior to 1842, widely varying marijuana extracts from buds, leaves, roots, etc. were the most commonly used and widely accepted medicines in the world for the majority of mankind's illnesses. However, in Western Europe, the Roman Catholic Church forbade use of cannabis or any medical treatment, except for alcohol or bloodletting. Thanks, Roman Catholic Church. For 1,200 plus years. The U.S. Pharmacopoeia indicated that cannabis should be used for treating such ailments as fatigue, fits of coughing, rheumatism, asthma, delirium tremens, migraine and headaches, and the cramps and depressions associated with menstruation. Queen Victoria used cannabis resins for her menstrual cramps, which we just read about. In this century, cannabis research has demonstrated therapeutic value, which is so true, and complete safety in the treatment of many health problems, including asthma, glaucoma, nausea, tumors, epilepsy, infection, stress, migraines, anorexia, depression, rheumatism, arthritis, and possibly herpes. And that's the end of that section. Oh, man. I'm telling you, this information to me is like mind-blowing. I think we're almost done. 13. In conclusion, yeah. So we have basically 2 more pages to go. Number 10. Food oils and protein. Hemp seed was regularly used in porridge, soups, and gruels by virtually all the people of the world up until this century. Monks were required to eat hemp seed dishes 3 times a day, to weave their clothes with it, and to print their Bibles on paper made with its fiber. I eat hemp seeds. They're delicious. Hemp seed can be pressed for its highly nutritious vegetable oil, which contains the highest amount of essential fatty acids in the plant kingdom. These essential oils are responsible for our immune responses and clear the arteries of cholesterol and plaque. The byproduct of pressing the oil from the seed is the highest quality protein seed cake. It can be sprouted, malted, or ground and baked into cakes, breads, and casseroles. Marijuana seed protein is one of mankind's finest, most complete, and available to the body vegetable proteins. Hemp seed is the most complete single food source for human nutrition. I know that sounds crazy, but I think even there's like a story about how the Buddha lived on 6 hemp seeds a day for a certain amount of time. Hemp seed was, until 1937 prohibition law, the world's #1 bird seed for both wild and domestic birds. It was their favorite of any seed food on the planet. 4 million pounds of hemp seed for songbirds were sold at retail in the U.S. in 1937. Birds will pick hemp seeds out and eat them first from a pile of mixed seed. Try it yourself. Birds in the wild live longer and breed more with hemp seed in their diet, using the oil for their feathers and their overall health. Help the birds, feed them hemp seeds. Hemp seed produces no observable high for humans or birds. Let's make this very clear. Hemp, cannabis, marijuana, there are different parts of the plant that do different things. Hemp will not make you high. Say it with me. Hemp will not make me high. Hemp seed produces no observable high for humans or birds. Only the most minute traces of THC are in the seed. Hemp seed is also the favorite fish bait in Europe. Anglers buy pecks of hemp seed at bait stores, then throw handfuls into rivers and ponds. Fish come thrashing for the hemp seed and are caught by hook, which is sad. No other bait is as effective, making hemp seed generally the most desirable and most nutritious food for humans, birds, and fish. That's the end of the food section. Hemp seed is available in most health food stores. It's not expensive. You don't require a lot. Trust me. Don't put a bunch of it on your food. I put a little bit into like salads or smoothies, and like a tablespoon is quite filling. And I do feel full. So it's pretty crazy. I mean, it's like it has what our body needs. Number 11, building materials and housing. Because 1 acre of hemp produces as much cellulose fiber pulp as 4.1 acres of trees, I'm going to read that again. 1 acre of hemp produces as much cellulose fiber pulp as 4.1 acres of trees. Hemp is the perfect material to replace trees for pressed board, particle board, and for concrete construction molds. Practical, inexpensive, fire-resistant construction material with excellent thermal and sound insulating qualities, is made by heating and compressing plant fibers to create strong construction paneling, replacing drywall and plywood. William B. Conde of Conde's Redwood Lumber Inc. near Eugene, Oregon, in conjunction with Washington State University from 1991 to 1993, has demonstrated the superior strength, flexibility, and economy of hemp composite building materials compared to wood fiber, even as beams. Look it up. Isochanvre, a rediscovered French building material made from hemp herds mixed with lime, actually petrifies into a mineral state and lasts for many centuries. Archaeologists have found a bridge in the south of France from the Merovingian period, 500 to 751 AD, built with this process. There's a little picture. Look at that. So cute. Okay, I'm going to keep reading. Chenovet, habitat of Rene, France. So go check out France. Although I do want to go to France one day. Side note. Hemp has been used throughout history for carpet backing. Hemp fiber has potential in the manufacture of strong, rot-resistant carpeting, eliminating the poisonous fumes of burning synthetic materials in a house or commercial fire, along with allergic reactions associated with new synthetic carpeting. Oh my gosh! Plastic plumbing pipe, PVC pipes, can be manufactured using renewable hemp cellulose as the chemical feedstocks, replacing non-renewable coal or petroleum-based chemical feedstocks. So we can envision a house of the future built, plumbed, painted, and furnished with the world's #1 renewable resource, hemp. Do you guys see what I mean? Like, reading this book and like, maybe I need to go live while I read this. Maybe like if you're this far in and this is interesting you and blowing your mind like it's been blowing mine, and you want to have like a longer discussion about this, like leave a comment or like this and like be like, yes, you should go live, because I would like to discuss it with you, because I like need like a sounding board for like how much this literally like solves every problem we're having. And the government is like, it's enemy #1 to them, because then we wouldn't need them. Anyway, number 12, smoking, leisure, and creativity. The American Declaration of Independence recognizes the inalienable rights of life, liberty, and the pursuit of happiness. Subsequent court decisions have inferred the rights to privacy and choice from this, the U.S. Constitution, and its amendments. Many artists and writers have used cannabis for creative stimulation, from the writers of the world's religious masterpieces to our most irreverent satirists. These include Lewis Carroll and his hookah-smoking caterpillar in Alice in Wonderland, plus Victor Hugo and Alexander Dumas. Such jazz greats as Louis Armstrong, which that's the main one I knew, Cab Calloway, Duke Ellington, and Gene Krupa. If you want, you can watch Grass is Greener on Netflix, which talks about a lot of musicians and artists having a deep relationship with the cannabis plant. And the pattern continues right up to modern day artists and musicians such as the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, the Eagles, the Doobie Brothers, Bob Marley, Jefferson Airplane, Willie Nelson, Buddy Rich, Country Joe and the Fish, Joe Walsh, David Carradine, David Bowie, Iggy Pop, Lola Falana, Hunter S. Thompson, Peter Tosh, Grateful Dead, Cypress Hill, Sinead O'Connor, Black Crowes. The list would go on and on. Of course, smoking marijuana only enhances creativity for some and not for others. But throughout history, various prohibition and temperance groups have attempted and occasionally succeeded in banning the preferred relaxational substances of others, like alcohol, tobacco, or cannabis. Abraham Lincoln responded to this kind of repressive mentality in December 1840 when he said, Abraham Lincoln, "Prohibition goes beyond the bounds of reason in that it attempts to control a man's appetite by legislation and makes a crime out of things that are not crimes. A prohibition law strikes a blow at the very principles upon which government was founded." Represent, Abraham Lincoln. Thank you. I wish you were here right now. That was number 12. 13. We believe that in a competitive market, we're talking about economic stability, profit, and free trade. We believe that in a competitive market, with all facts known, people will rush to buy long-lasting, biodegradable pot tops or Maryjeans, etc., made from a plant without pesticides or herbicides. Some of the companies who have led the way with these products are Ecolution, Hempstead, Marie Mills, Ohio Hempery, 2-star dog, head case, and in Germany, Hemp house, etc. and so on. It's time we put capitalism to the test and let the unrestricted market of supply and demand, as well as green ecological consciousness, decide the future of the planet. A cotton shirt in 1776 cost $100 to $200, while a hemp shirt cost 50 cents to $1. By the 1830s, cooler, lighter cotton shirts were on par in price with the warmer, heavier hempen shirts, providing a competitive choice. People were able to choose their garments based upon the particular qualities they wanted in a fabric. Today, we have no such choice. The role of hemp and other natural fibers should be determined by the market of supply and demand and personal tastes and values, not by the undue influence of prohibition laws, federal subsidies, and huge tariffs that keep the natural fabrics from replacing synthetic fibers. And I completely agree. 60 years of government suppression. Sorry, there's a noise, and it's distracting me. 60 years of government suppression of information has virtually, oh, it's Thor, my mom's dog, has virtually resulted in virtually no public knowledge of the incredible potential of the hemp fiber or its uses, and I will agree, I had no idea that this plant could do all of this. By using 100% hemp or mixing hemp with cotton, you will be able to pass on your shirts, pants, and other clothing to your grandchildren. Intelligent spending could essentially replace the use of petrochemical synthetic fibers, such as nylon and polyester, with tougher, cheaper, cool, absorbent, breathing, biodegradable natural fibers. And I know some people, we all have different styles, we all have different ways we want to dress and to look. You can do that with this fabric and then just have it made your way, especially if you are someone who is more creative and expressive with how you dress and your style and fashion. You can fashion these clothes any way you want. They don't look like hunky-dory, like they look, okay, I'm gonna have to make a video with like the stuff I've made out of hemp because they're beautiful. Let's continue. China, Italy, and Eastern European countries such as Hungary, Romania, Czechoslovakia, Poland, and Russia currently make millions of dollars worth of sturdy hemp and hemp cotton textiles, and could be making billions of dollars worth annually. These countries build upon their traditional farming and weaving skills, while the United States tries to force the extinction of this plant to prop up destructive synthetic technologies. We are embarrassing ourselves. Even cannabis/cotton blend textiles were still not cleared for direct sale in the United States until 1991. The Chinese, for instance, were forced by tacit agreement to send us inferior ramie and cottons. As the 1990 edition of Emperor went to press, garments containing at least 55% cannabis hemp arrived from China and Hungary. In 1992, as we went to press, many different grades of 100% hemp fabric had arrived directly from China and Hungary. Now, in 1998, hemp fabric is in booming demand all over the world, arriving from Romania, Poland, Italy, Germany, etc., and so on. So if you're looking for hemp clothing, you have to look outside of America. Hemp has been recognized as the hottest fabric of the 1990s by Rolling Stone, Time, Newsweek, Paper, Detour, Details, Mademoiselle, New York Times, Los Angeles Times, Der Spiegel, ad infinitum. All have run over and over again major stories on industrial and nutritional hemp. Additionally, hemp grown for biomass could fuel a $1 trillion per year energy industry while improving air quality and distributing the wealth to rural areas and their surrounding communities and away from centralized power monopolies, and restore the health of the soil, which can sequester carbon and take all the extra carbon we're emitting back into the ground to strengthen our root system. More than any other plant on earth, hemp holds the promise of a sustainable ecology and economy. In conclusion, we made it. We must reiterate our original premise with our challenge to the world to prove us wrong. If all fossil fuels and their derivatives, as well as trees for paper and construction, were banned in order to save the planet, reverse the greenhouse effect, and stop deforestation, then there is only one known annually renewable natural resource that is capable of providing the overall majority of the world's paper, textiles, meeting all of the world's transportational, industrial, and home energy needs, while simultaneously reducing pollution, rebuilding the soil, and cleaning the atmosphere all at the same time. And that substance is the same one that did it all before. Cannabis, hemp, marijuana. Thank you so much for coming on this Chapter 2 journey with me and for listening. Please look into The Emperor Wears No Clothes and purchase the book for yourself. Please do your own research. Please just open your mind. Please be the change we wish to see here for this planet. We have only 60 harvests left. 60 years. We have 60 harvests left before there is like no turning it around. So thank you for being that change here. We have to take the change into our own hands and stop waiting for someone else to do it. So thank you for listening. Thanks for coming to my cannabis talk. If you want to go live and communicate with me on this, then let me know. If not, I'll continue to just keep recording these as chapters. Thank you so much. As always, I'm sending you peace. I'm sending you love. Until next time.